Hey, how are you? This is Daniel Zendi, and today we're going to have an international look on whether monarchies are actually designed for success. And this is the photo of the day. It's me next to the Iron Throne in 2019. It was just before season 8 was released, and there was a big commotion. There was some press conferences. I was in New York at the time, and so I just took a picture with the throne. And since the video is about monarchies, I thought it'd make sense to show it to you guys. So let's start. There's actually 43 current monarchies in the world. It's about 25% of the world countries, a little less, and 12 of them are in Europe. Obviously, everyone knows the UK is a monarchy, and a lot of people know that some countries that were affiliated with the UK, they have the King of England as their king as well. So the King of Canada, the King of Australia, the King of New Zealand, the King of England, they're all the same person. But also, there's quite a few monarchies in Asia. So Japan, Thailand, Malaysia are some examples. And there are quite a lot of monarchies in Europe. Spain, the Netherlands, Belgium, the Nordics, Liechtenstein, Monaco, Andorra, yeah, quite a few monarchies in Europe. So obviously, if we compare HDI and GDP per capita in select countries, we are going to find some very interesting data. First of all, monarchies have a higher average HDI of 0.8 versus 0.71. It might seem like a small difference, but it really isn't. To give an example, around an HDI of around 0.8 is more or less what Albania or Malaysia is, or Bosnia, whereas like HDI of 0.71 is more or less where Morocco, Venezuela, and Samoa are. So that's quite a difference, and well, it is very significant in terms of HDI. It has a higher GDP per capita as well, 32,000 versus 15,000, so it's more than double. At 32,000, it's more or less around Japan, Czech Republic, Estonia, whereas 15,000 is like Chile and Turkey. So yeah, a lot of difference there as well. On average, monarchies, they do tend to have higher trust, more stability, and a more clear national identity. One example I like to give here in Asia is Malaysia is a monarchy. It's much more stable and developed than Indonesia. Thailand is a monarchy and it's more developed than its neighbors, like Cambodia and Myanmar. So those are very interesting things to realize. That doesn't mean that monarchies are great, but it is an indicative, let's say. Also, monarchies, they tend to have a lower total cost and lower perceived corruption than republics. I got a comparison here of the UK, obviously, it's a monarchy, with France, Germany, and the US. And the head of state in the UK actually costs less proportionally to the other countries. Well, actually, Germany is doing pretty good here. There's no election costs, and obviously, most in the UK in particular, the royal family, they own a lot of land, and that land actually offsets a lot of their costs. There's a very interesting CGP Grey video on how the monarchy more than pays for itself, but that's just a side note. The more relevant data is that HDI and GDP per capita on average, they're very different. Out of the countries with high human development, 50% are monarchies, and if you just expected a random data, it would be 25%, so it's more than double of what you would expect. Obviously, Norway is a monarchy, Australia, Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands. So yes, 50% of the top 10. And it's a lot of the richest countries in every region are also monarchies. So like I said, these are the top 10 richest countries in the world, and then top 10 per region. And 50% of the top 10 in the world are monarchies. Those would be Luxembourg, Norway, Qatar, Denmark, and Australia. So 50% of the top 10. And then 50% of the top 10 in Europe as well, 50% of the top 10 in Asia, 40% of the top 10 in the Americas, 40% in Oceania, and the only continent where there's 0 monarchies in the top 10 richest countries is Africa. But in all fairness, there are not that many rich countries in Africa, are there? So in every single continent except Africa, the percentage of monarchies in the top 10 is far higher than it would have been if you just selected it by chance. So it does seem to be something that is correlated with wealth, and more than that, it's something that's correlated with wealth regardless of where you are. Like, it's correlated with wealth in Europe and in Asia and in the Americas and in Oceania. All right. So there's obviously some very clear contrast that we can give. North Europe, the Nordics, Netherlands, Belgium, they're all monarchies. South Europe, virtually all Southern European countries, except for microstates like Monaco and Andorra, are republics. And North Europe is known to be richer, more stable than Southern Europe. Malaysia is richer than Indonesia. Morocco is richer than Algeria. Jordan is richer and more stable than Iraq. Thailand is richer and more stable than Myanmar. So you can see, even in the same region, even in countries that are right next to each other, the monarchy normally fares a lot better than the republic or the democracy. There's a lot of reasons for that. Like I said, stability is one, long-term thinking is one. No matter what you say about the King of Dubai or the King of Saudi Arabia, they can think long-term. They have a country for the long run. And obviously that does tend to allow you to make better decisions. You don't need to buy votes. You don't need to do bad policy just because in the short term it's going to help a certain group of people that you need to be elected. And there is also survivorship bias, which might be the biggest reason why monarchies tend to be rich, which is obviously when you have a revolution, when you have some sort of protest or some sort of regime change or war, the probability that what comes out of it is a monarchy is really, really small. It's mostly a dictatorship or a democracy or a republic or whatever. And so countries that are monarchies, they're monarchies because that's the oldest form of government, and that means that they're probably old countries. That means that they're probably really stable. And since they're old, since they're stable, the probability that they've accumulated more wealth and more stability over time is actually really high, which is why, for example, all the Nordic countries, they're monarchies, they're really old countries, they haven't really engaged in war too much, or at least they weren't completely invaded, partially invaded in World War II, but still, they are more stable, and that's because of survivorship bias, whereas like France, for example, obviously, it had the French Revolution. It had a lot of revolutions. America had the American Revolution. Latin America had a lot of dictators overall. Same with Africa and etc. So it might really be just a survivorship bias. Majority rule, that's one thing that I think we can take away from this, is mob rule. Unless you have separation of powers, a division of powers, checks and balances, non-governmental institutions, private interests, and a lean and limited government. It is really, really easy for you to say, oh, no, we're a democracy, when actually it's just mob rule. You just do what the mob says. And that is not a government, that is not a country, that's just chaos. So you really do need a separation and division of power. You need institutions, you need checks and balances, and monarchies normally give that better because nobody wants the monarch to have too much power. And so, at least in Europe especially, it is the monarch actually provides stability by having a few key powers that are set aside from voting, from democracy, etc., and having a long-term overarching observer that observes the politics and makes sure it's more civil and quiet and understanding. So I think this is a very interesting idea as well. Now, I'm not a monarchist, but I think the data does suggest that they have some very good points, let's say. So my wrapping up is there is significant evidence to suggest that monarchies produce reliably better results than they're often given credit for, especially when compared to other forms of government. However, this could be due to factors not directly linked to a monarchy itself, such as historic stability, checks and balances, and division of power. Now, what form of government do you think is best? Let me know in the comments below.